On the 2nd of February 1949, a barbaric and horrific doctor who worked inside of the deadliest concentration camp was led out to the gallows inside of Landsberg Prison by American soldiers for his date with the executioner. He was helped up the steps of the execution scaffold and was then handed over to the man who would be in charge of his execution. This American man made sure the execution was performed swiftly, but for every person who went to the gallows for their horror and terror they committed during the Second World War, there were dozens if not hundreds of people who worked inside of sites such as Dachau, Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz who were never brought to trial. The Allies tried their best to capture some of the most high-ranking members of the SS, but some such as Adolf Eichmann slipped through their fingers for a number of decades, and still today there are some SS members being hunted. But Helmuth Vetter was not a guard, and he worked as a doctor inside of the deadliest site of mass murder within the Third Reich, but he was responsible for execution, slaughter, and terrifying medical experiments, and for this he went to his execution. Welcome to The Untold Past. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Helmuth Vetter was born on the 21st of March 1910 in Rastenburg. Like so many people during the 1930s and early 1940s, Vetter became a member of the Nazi Party, and he also joined the SS. This was Heinrich Himmler's ruthless and brutal paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party, who later became the guards of the concentration camps. They also had a military wing that saw action on the battlefield, the Waffen-SS. The SS became one of the most horrific groups in history, and they were responsible for the slaughter of millions of people during the Second World War. But they employed many doctors and medical staff who were supposed to care for individuals before the war had happened, yet under the cover of the conflict, they became murderers, executioners and torturers who carried out sadistic experiments. Helmuth Vetter was sent to Auschwitz, the camp where over 1.1 million people died within the barbed wire fences. Rudolf Höss, a commandant of the camp, wanted to make the deadliest and most efficient camp that he could, and he experimented on different methods of killing many people the quickest. Helmuth Vetter was, when he was sent to Auschwitz, appointed the Chief Doctor by no other than Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS himself, and for him he must have believed that this was some form of huge honour, being acknowledged by Himmler in this way. As the Chief Doctor of Auschwitz, Vetter, you would have expected, would give out medical care and help, but this was not the case, but those who were injured or who fell ill inside the camp were instead sent to their deaths inside the gas chambers. Helmuth Vetter was responsible for choosing prisoners during the selections who would go to their deaths within the gas chambers. He picked his victims when they embarked off the railway boxcars at Auschwitz to be admitted either into the camp to go and work in the industrial complexes around the site, or they were then sent to their deaths. He picked prisoners when they embarked off the railway boxcars at Auschwitz, and they believed they would be admitted into the camp to go and work within the huge industrial complexes around Auschwitz. But for every prisoner who was admitted inside of Auschwitz to work, and who gained a small percentage chance of survival, there were many more who were exterminated straight away after they disembarked the trains and were then driven into the gas chambers by other SS guards. The doctors were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands, but Vetter was also known for carrying out sadistic medical experiments upon the prisoners. Vetter was known to have administered lethal injections of phenol into prisoners, and he was paid by the industrial conglomerate IG Farben in this role, and he was ordered to and willingly deliberately infected prisoners with deadly bacteria within Auschwitz, as well as at Gusen concentration camp and also at Dachau. He did this to then carry out experiments upon the inmates. At the end of the Second World War, many members of the concentration camp staff tried to escape any punishment, but Helmuth Vetter was arrested and he was then tried as a war criminal by the Allies. He was sentenced to death for war crimes, and with this was sent to Landsberg Prison to await his death sentence. On the 2nd of February 1949, over 3 years since the war had come to an end in Europe, Helmuth Vetter was informed that his execution date had arrived. He was taken from his prison cell into the courtyard of Landsberg Prison, where many American military policemen were accompanying him to make sure his execution went as well as it could have done. A priest also provided spiritual guidance in his final moments, but Vetter had his identity confirmed at the bottom of the gallows, and he was then helped up the execution structure. On the gallows, the executioner checked his arms and legs were secured well to avoid him moving as he plunged through the trapdoor, and he then placed a black cap over his head and then the noose, which he then tightened around his neck. After all the checks were performed, the executioner released a trapdoor, and Helmuth Vetter plunged through to his death. Helmuth Vetter was a barbaric and brutal doctor who worked inside of the deadliest concentration camp of the Second World War. He is someone who is not the most well known, when compared to other horrific doctors such as Josef Mengele, who also performed sadistic experiments, but Vetter conducted this sort of barbaric experimentation upon prisoners too, but his legacy is not as well known as the Angel of Deaths. However, inside the walls of an American-controlled prison, this ruthless doctor who worked inside of Auschwitz as the Chief Doctor and Medical Officer was sent to his death. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.